Hello, viewers, artists, and those alike. Welcome to the Art Lounge Alley. This is part 35 of Figure Drawing Basics. Today's going to be slightly different. Still going to be doing figure drawing, but it's going to be something else. Yesterday we were covering the head. Today I'm going to be finishing up the sketchbook. As far as drawing basics go, for other streams, I'm going to be coming back to it to ink, to color the panels that you guys have been seeing. But as far as the drawing basics sessions, it's going to be a new sketchbook. So today I'm just going to be finishing it up. But prior to doing that, for all of those who are just tuning in for the very first time, this is the first time that you are seeing the Art Lounge Alley. I'd like to introduce you guys to the Patreon page, and this is it right here. So I'm going to go over it real quick. I'm not going to spend way too much time on it. This is the Art Lounge Alley Patreon page. The first tier is pretty affordable, $2 per month. You have access to the Discord server, where pretty much everybody from all the social media links come together, and all the tiers, they all come together to this one channel. You guys can interact with each other, get to know each other, share content, talk about whatever. And you'll also have your name listed in the credits. I'm going to start doing credits once you guys are going to be pledging to the Patreon page, so your name is going to be listed there. Then we got tier 2 all access, where you get access to all the finished pages and exclusive content. We got tier 3, which is the critique submissions tier. This is excellent for those of you who want to submit your work to get some tips and tricks on how to improve your work, and some help and guidance on improving your drawing skills in general. Then we got the Kickstarter patron tier. This is $25 per month, where I will draw a high-resolution digital painting of you and send you that file for you to do as you wish. Then we got the tier 4 artist promotion. This is really meant for intermediate or advanced artists, where you guys can submit a 5-minute video that I'm going to promote on stream. I'm going to also promote you guys through all the social media that I post to regularly, to funnel in more followers and more viewers to see more of your work. There's a lot of information on here. I highly encourage you guys to read through pretty much all the tiers just to get a better idea. You're always welcome to ask me questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And you could also check out the video in the collections section of the Twitch channel, where I posted a more extensive video. It's called Patreon Page Launch and Schedule Change, where you guys can get a better idea of what each tier is. I go over each one of them one by one, go into extensive detail about each one of them. And at some point in the future, I'll be doing the same thing again. But for now, I'm going to keep it short. I am trying to wrap it up so that we can jump into the stream. Then we got the tier 5 private tutoring. Pretty self-explanatory. It's limited to 15 people. You get 30-minute video per week. So 4 videos in total catered just for you, and whatever it is that you're working on. So I'm going to help you improve that work. I'm going to help you improve your skills if you're a beginner. And I'll also send you the PSD file that I'm going to be working on over your work, so you could explore it at your own pace and time. There'll be homework. There's also going to be a private Discord channel just between me and you, so you could leave me comments, questions, your progress, and pretty much anything else, and I'll be able to talk about it in the stream, or I'll write you back in the channel. And that way we can stay in touch. And you get all the other tier benefits as well. So take your time, read through it, and ask me any questions you got. All right, y'all, that's pretty much it for the promotion. Let's jump into the stream. So as you see, I have it open to the Conan panels that I've been doing in the sketchbook. And you might be asking, why are you starting the stream with that. Well, the idea is to cover as much of the page as possible through all the pages before I switch to a new sketchbook. So I'm going to go through all of them just to see where else do I find empty space that I could fill up. Just an example of like what I'm talking about here. Pretty much every single spot on the page is used to draw something on it, and I feel like that's really fulfilling. That's a good way to use up the sketchbook, make sure that all the pages are covered. I'm using both sides of the pages. Something that I haven't been doing in my previous sketchbooks. I was looking through them and I was just ashamed at how much space I was wasting in general. Like I would draw on one side and flip over and just draw on an empty page, like something small, and then flip over and do the same thing, avoiding the back side of the page. It's just a shame. I think that there's all that space. Why not use it? Why not really make use of your sketchbook and just have yourself do some work on it, rather than just avoiding these little nuances. I guess for me it was just something that in my head I felt like, oh, you need a fresh start, blank canvas sort of thing. And I would do it too often to a point where I would get to the end of the sketchbook but not really much has been done. I'd just skip through too much, and I just thought that that's not really a good way to go about it. I'd rather do the complete opposite this time and really make use of every single page. So I'm gonna fill them up with figure drawings. Well, just like more simplified versions of the figure. You guys have seen it throughout the sketchbook. I just feel like they are excellent ways to be more familiar with the figure. They're simple, they're not complicated. And you're also practicing the figure. It's less intimidating that way. You're simplifying the limbs. You're simplifying pretty much the pose to, and also giving yourself some groundwork. Something to build on. In a sense, you don't want to jump into detail immediately. It's something that I mention very frequently. And by simplifying these forms and really making sure that everything fits as you like, this is an excellent process for that. And really, it's even more useful to actually just, and I'll demonstrate it in the next figure drawing. And I'm kind of in the mood to actually ink it as well. I feel like that's gonna do some good as well, because it is a different tool. It has its own limitations, its own handling in a sense. You do have to make things, or you have to adjust to it, rather. You have to make some adjustments to your drawing. For one, it teaches you to be even more sensitive towards the tool. You know, as I mentioned with the pencil, it's really important to draw lightly, and that requires some concentration and being conscious of how you're handling the tool. Well, this is another one. And it's even more so because if you press too hard, you're going to make some thick lines that you don't like. Well, especially when it comes to this tool because it's a brush pen. It's not a micron, whereas that is more forgiving. You're always going to make the same line, the same thickness of the line, unless you're trying to be incredibly light with it, in which case you can get some really thin lines as well. But it could only get so thick. Whereas with this, the line variation is really wide. And that sensitivity transitions into the other tools, you know, for the pencil. So if you could be really sensitive towards how hard you press with the brush pen, well, then you're going to build yourself an ability to be conscious of it, and that transitions into pencil as well. And also you get faster. Your lines get cleaner. That's the benefit of inking, is that it forces you to really, focus, right? Because if you make a mistake, erasing is a big problem. Like, you have to get the white out, you have to use a different brush rather. You got to get more water, and you start getting into all that sort of stuff. So it's like, well, if you're going to make a mistake, you better be ready to do all that. So it just kind of pushes you to be more conscious of your lines, and that's good. You know, that also builds your confidence, it builds your focus. I'm gonna see if I could squeeze in another one here. Maybe smaller, and that's the other challenge. Like, I want to draw these figures, but really take into account their size as well. So which one should I do? I'm gonna do this one. Let me see if I can make a small one. Even smaller. Do some colliding here as well. Another really important phobia to get over when it comes to drawing in a sketchbook is like drawing objects too close to each other if they're not related, for example. You know, if you're drawing something completely different on a different day, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to ruin the other one. So you just barely have them touch, as opposed to having them collide with each other in a sense. squeezed it in there. Managed to get it. And Pretzel's playlist in the chat. Sometimes it's hard for me to see you guys because of that, because the names of the Pretzel songs are the same color as somebody else. So like when I look up and I see blue and somebody else's name is also in blue, it's hard to distinguish it. I just kind of glance over and think it's Pretzel. But I think that's their way of just saying, hey, why don't you subscribe? And that way, which I might actually, I might just end up doing that. And that way it doesn't spam my chat. But at the same time, you know, you might like a song and you'll know exactly which one it is, or you could just browse it yourself. Just wish there was like a separate box for it where it spams that box as opposed to chat. There's been a couple of times that some users have said something and then much later I would realize, oh, that's not Pretzel. I'm gonna do another one here. Just doing a quick gesture line, you know, just to establish. Again, it's a step-by-step process, so the very first thing, it's like the most simple form you could make, which is like basically stick figures. You know, you're not putting in too much detail, you're just setting up parameters. Just want to make sure that, let's say, it fits within this space. So the quickest way to do that is just to give like the gesture line, like the overall pose. And then from there you could build it. It doesn't necessarily have to sit on it, but it's something, you know, somewhere for you to know where to start and finish. Really, that's what it's really about. And that has proven itself to be extremely useful when I was doing comics. Try to fit into the panel, whatever it is that I'm working on. No, the arm isn't going to fit here. Nor is the other one. All right. Now I'm gonna just ink over this. It's supposed to be a 3-step process, but I'm turning it into 2. Just because it's simple forms. You know, really you would do the pencil work. You know, we got the blue pencil, that's the first stage, then regular pencil, which is the second stage. And that's usually used for defining lines more, fleshing it out really. And then when you're done with that, it's supposed to be more of like a finalized version where you would add the inks. But in this case, there is no detail really. So just to draw out more of these, I'm turning it into a 2-step process instead. You know, I read about all these different comic book artists, like when I was reading about John Buscema and how much he didn't like when other people inked his work. But at the same time, I always wonder, like, would he have been able to still pump out 2 issues per month had he inked his own work? And that's kind of what I mean. There isn't enough about him. You know, there isn't enough about this process and like all that stuff. In some ways, I guess it's good. Other ways, it's not. You know, for us as viewers, for us as fans of him and of his work, we want to see more, obviously, and get to know him better. But in some ways, I guess it's good because it leaves more people to be a fan. Because there isn't that much about him. As in, sometimes when you discover something about artists, like for instance musicians, like there were so many scummy musicians who were really good and they made amazing work. And then once you find out, well, at least for me, just kind of lose respect for them a little bit. Like, oh, they were really into little girls, you know, or like teenage girls, and that was a thing that they did. And it's just so frustrating to hear anything like that. Like, oh, they play such great music, but they got teenage girls as groupies. That's gross. So it kind of like makes me not want to listen to their music. So it begs the question of like, you know, should you connect the artist personally to the art that they produce? And I feel like it's a yes and no. You know, in some ways, I think because they become so influential and because so many people start to look up to them and admire them and be like, oh, like I really like their music, I like their style, I like how they're on stage, they start to like emulate their personalities in a sense. And I feel like that becomes a problem, right? It becomes this like rippling effect where a bunch of teenagers or guys or whatever, they start growing up behaving that way. It's not something that you can control, and sometimes it's really frustrating as an artist because you're just like, hey, I don't want you to copy me, I just want to be able to do what I want to do and express myself. And that's kind of like what Ian MacKaye was talking about when he was making his album, and he was talking about this idea of straight edge. It was never meant to be some sort of guideline. It was never meant to be like a movement of any sort. He was just expressing himself. He was just talking about how he doesn't care about a lot of the things that society cares about, like drinking and fucking and smoking and doing drugs and all that stuff, and being obsessed with money and all that just not what he wanted. That's not what he liked. And it just turned out to end up being a movement because so many people liked him, his work, the music that he was playing, and they were just wanted to be part of that whole community. They ended up emulating him, and it became this thing. So just something that happens, just something that because you produce things that really affect people and people really like it, it sort of has this like rippling effect. So I feel like in some ways it should, but at the same time it could be stifling within the artistic process. Some people just letting go and doing whatever in order to get like a broader perspective on things, or to learn from it. They make a bunch of mistakes and they say or do really stupid things, and then they learn from that, and then they create art from that or whatever else, so I feel like there's like a fine line there. And I think that the more people start to think for themselves, the more people start thinking critically, the less likely they'll want to emulate others, and the more they'll want to develop themselves. I think that's a really important point. I think that every single person has something very unique about them, but they just get brainwashed by the system to want to emulate, or to be like somebody, or to act like somebody, or whatever else. And it's all very circumstantial as well. A lot of people end up having unfortunate family scenarios or environments where they're incredibly toxic, and they end up like breaking people down, or whether it's all sorts of scenarios, and that leads to people wanting to not liking themselves, and wanting to be somebody else. So as you guys could see, a lot has to do with it, the environments, how people are raised, what kind of education systems are out there in order to help people like really value themselves and understand the importance of treating others well, that sort of thing. There isn't really that implication, or focus rather, like I feel like social studies shouldn't be just history. It's like it should be about social interaction, interpersonal skills, that sort of thing. And a lot of that has to deal with like morality, those values, and how our actions are rippling. How our thoughts about ourselves and our surroundings end up shaping others around us, that sort of thing. And of course, there's capitalism that doesn't want you to understand your true value, or, to not exercise toxic behaviors, because all that plays into them selling things to you. Oh, you feel bad about yourself? Get this done, or buy this product, and this is going to make you happy, and so on and so forth. So it's like, there's a lot of people who fight against good education systems, because that's going to hurt their pocket. It's just so disgusting. And I think more people should wake up to that and really fight for the right thing, as opposed to just fueling these nutbags and their greed. And that way, I think that people will be just more healthy psychologically, about themselves, about real values, and they'll want to do more interesting things with their time rather than, you know, trying to emulate some celebrity or some other person and pretending to be somebody else. And I think things like inventions would flourish, and music would flourish as well. It won't be this like redundant, repetitive, like, look how great I am, and I got all this money, and I get all these people to bow down to me, or whatever, you know, all that nonsense. We'll have like more interesting content. We'll have more interesting ideas and creativity, you know, rather than this like really boring surface level sense of entertainment. Gonna see if I could try to squeeze this in again. As you guys could notice, I am trying to keep a distance from the tip of the pencil. I am pressing a little bit harder than usual because I want you guys to see it. It's going to be a pretty boring stream if you can't even see what I'm doing. So I'm trying to make sure that it's hard enough to be visually present. So kind of squeezed it in there. I really didn't use this page well. Like, there's all this space in between. I feel like I could throw some other things in there. There's some pages I'm not going to touch, like this right here. I will be uploading it, or have actually uploaded that, as well as these pages I've uploaded to my Patreon page. So if you guys want to get these pages here to help you understand the figure, to understand how the head is measured into pretty much any part of the body, it's the easiest way to study proportion. And yeah, just have it there for you to be able to draw. Like if you're doing it traditionally, if you're doing it at a desk, you could print it and just redraw these over and over and over again, which I highly recommend. Once is never enough. I've done this multiple times throughout the book, throughout the sketchbook. As you can see, it's over here as well. And I've just drawn them over and over because I think that's how you learn. You know, it's the same thing as like your alphabet. You learn the alphabet by not just saying it once or repeating it once or writing it down once. You have to do it several times in order for it to really instill itself in your mind. So the same idea with this. Even if you do draw it really well once, it's still not enough. You have to do that over and over until all these ideas, like two heads for the top of the part of the body, two heads for the bottom until up into the groin, like those things you have to be able to remember well each time. Anyways, this is available on the Patreon page. You could download it, you could redraw it multiple times. I also uploaded this as well, and I'm going to be uploading other features as well for you guys to just draw. Like these pages I'm going to be uploading as well for you to be able to just practice the figure as much as possible. They're pretty simple, and they're great ways to just draw something beside just straight on shots. Like you're not going to be drawing this very often. This is just maybe character development. You know, when you're designing a character, you might be drawing it that way. And it's also great for you to be able to become so familiar with anatomy that it helps you in any other position. Like once you understand it, once your eye gets used to seeing the proportions this way, once your hand-eye coordination is better, anytime you draw the figure in other positions, you'll have this as your guide in your mind. You'll remember like, oh yeah, the hand isn't supposed to be too big. It's about 3/4 the size of the head. So if my hands look bigger than my head, that's already a problem. And that's something you learn from just drawing these very straight on shots, right? It just gives you proximity to measure things. So it's not always going to be straight on, but you'll understand that if it's going to be closer towards the camera, the hand gets bigger. So it shouldn't be the same size as the head. It should be a little bit bigger because it's so much closer towards the camera. And the same idea for it to be being far away. You have to have a starting point, and this is the starting point. Understanding this very much standard in a sense of where certain things are in terms of size to each other. Same thing for the feet. You know, if you're drawing the feet and one of them is a little bit further back, you're going to know that the foot at its front shot is about the same size as the head. So if it's smaller, then you know your proportions are off. Or if it's bigger, you know the proportions are off. Or if it's big while the foot is behind, you know, where it's supposed to shrink. You know, as things get further and further away from us, they get smaller, right? So it's the same idea. But if you don't know the actual size, the standard size of the foot, you might draw it big even though it's further away. And that's a mistake. So even though this isn't something you're always going to draw, these very much like straightforward, straight shots of the body, they're a good starting point. They're a good standard to judge where and what you should be, where you should be placing things and how big you should be doing them and that sort of thing. So these are excellent pages. I've drawn them several times. I highly recommend you guys do too. So you can check that out on the Patreon page. You can download it and the other pages as well. I'll be uploading more through this book, you know, since I'm pretty much done with it this week. I'm going to be uploading other things you guys can practice. Yeah, so just getting back to this. I'm going to try to fill up. Let's see, should I draw something here? I'm trying to draw this other figure. Let's see if I could fit it in. And as I mentioned, I'm also trying to get over the colliding part, right? Like that's also a good way to practice it. So even though it's going to collide with this panel, I'm going to draw it in a way where not a big deal. I'm going to work with it as opposed to avoid it. And I promise you guys, if you practice not holding the pencil all the way to the tip and keeping it at a distance, it becomes so much more comfortable. Like I don't want to go backwards and start drawing again, holding it at a tip. I could feel how really the range of motion, my lines are faster this way, and I get a better scope of where I'm going with my lines and how they are in relation to the rest of the body. So that's enough of that. Let me ink these. That arm might be a little too long. I remember when I first started out using this, it was so intimidating because I was like, oh, man, if I just press too hard, I'm gonna put a blob of paint on this, and it's gonna ruin the entire drawing. But the more I practice with it, the more I feel comfortable with it, and I know what to expect. So I really, it's another reason why I really want to practice this, or have it be more common in the stream. Trying to see where else I could do some more. I'm gonna say some here. I'm not gonna be uploading these, or if anything, it's just gonna be more figures on a page for you guys to draw. So where do I go next after this page? I'm gonna skip that. Maybe I'm gonna take this space right here. All right, here we go. There's another one. Doing another quick gesture. Feet might be a little too big. it looks like this might be the last figure, ladies and gents. Coming close to an hour. And I'm going to be starting the project stream pretty soon, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm getting more finished. All right, y'all, this is it for drawing basics. Stick around. In 5 minutes I'm going to take a break. In 5 minutes I'm going to start the project stream. If you guys enjoy the content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. They both will go a long way and help the stream grow. And stick around. I'll be back soon.